Introverted people are probably like, honestly, information is out, emotion is in. Don't criticize other people that do. So I decided to close the agency right at the end of 2019, and then the pandemic hit. I was making a lot of money in my first business.
Welcome back to Be-teachable. In the first episode, Kirsty shared the story behind building and closing a successful business and why a decision that looked like failure became the beginning of a more meaningful career. We pick up the conversation at the beginning. She admits that closing her agency took a hit on her ego. From there, we explore what confidence really looks like, why presence is more powerful than performance, how introverts can become exceptional leaders, and why our human skills will become even more valuable in the age of AI. Whether you're leading a team, growing your career, or simply trying to communicate with more confidence, I hope this conversation leaves you with ideas you can put into practice straight away. So let's get started.
So I don't think I ever consciously saw of it as a failure, but my ego definitely missed the big numbers, the big revenue, and the being the boss. My ego missed that for sure.
What gave you the strength to start over again?
Oh, I had to. I think sometimes circumstances will inform us. All of this really, it all happened around the pandemic. And so I decided to close the agency right at the end of 2019. And I was married at the time. I was in a marriage that wasn't great for, nobody's fault. It just, neither of us were happy. And so, I was closing down this business, trying to build the other business, and then the pandemic hit. And I'm not exaggerating when I say I lost my home, my husband, and my job in a week. So all of my revenue dried up. I was living a very expensive lifestyle before. That ego I was talking about. I was making a lot of money in my first business. So I had this beautiful home, and I was like, well, I can't afford this anymore. So I ended up in my 30s moving back in with my parents for a few weeks. For a couple of months. And I had to rebuild because I didn't want that. And I really did. I rebuilt fast, and we will. I think sometimes the biggest gift I think I've ever had is not coming from a wealthy background, not coming from an environment where somebody else would save me, and knowing that if I'm going to eat and I'm going to pay my bills, I better get that post on LinkedIn. And I think often I will speak to business owners or budding business owners who, will say, oh, I'm going to stop my business when I have so much in savings, and actually that will prevent your success because we have to make things non-negotiable. And so I wouldn't say I found the courage to start again. I truly didn't have another option. I didn't have another option. My only option was to try and make this other business work or I don't know. So I like that. I like that everything I've ever built is entirely 100% from me because there never was a safety net ever. Yep. So that was a gift.
Yeah, that's also how to stay motivated. You need to you just need to push through sometimes.
Yeah. And I think often we see people on LinkedIn, for example, will always be really mean about salespeople. They'll be like, oh, someone cold called me. And I've always just had this sense that if you're hating on salespeople, you're not showing your principles, you're showing your privilege. If you've never had to try and get business because you're not sure how you'll pay rent unless you do, if you've never had to do that, don't criticize other people that do. And I think that all the time, when people, or if people judge someone for showing up on the internet, if people are like, oh, she's so attention seeking on social media because someone's trying to build a business. I'm like, you do not know what that feels like to know that your income is directly correlated to your visibility and your asking. And so I often, when you were sharing earlier, I've got a salary, I'm like, God, that'd be so nice. That'd be so nice.
Yeah, it's part of being employed. But there are pros and cons
Totally.
everywhere, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. I think
There's really
always
there's no like right, wrong, good, bad. People will often say to me like, oh, they might be in like a really good job, you know, they might work at Google or an amazing company, and like, oh, I really want to work for myself. It seems so good. And I'm always like, just be so careful what you wish for, because yes, I have flexibility, but I don't have psychological flexibility. You know, I can work from wherever, but I never have that ease that whatever happens, a paycheck is coming in. So there's always like that trade-off. And anything in life, there's benefits and costs, and you know, things are really good and things are really bad in equal measure for everything in life, I think.
definitely. And to be honest, I think people who went through the same, like to build a business, they would never judge because they know that's a necessary part. Tell me a little bit about your current companies.
I think the main thing I'm focusing on right now is the corporate training work. So I will go into businesses, often big corporates. I think that's where I tend to have the most impact. And I will help their teams with the kind of people skills that we tend not to think about. And for 10 years, I've been telling people, you need to figure out how to communicate well and be yourself and be authentic. I've been doing it for such a long time. And now it's more important than ever, because obviously, like we alluded to earlier, the world is changing so quickly. AI is moving so quickly. The world of work is changing, and, you know, it is going to change. And as humans, the thing that we really need to hold on to is our humanity and our influence, and how we can build relationships and build trust and create messages that have emotional impact. And so much of our business work is rooted in information and sharing information and data and graphs and being serious. Like, honestly, information is out, emotion is in. And I think it's the only way, I truly think this, it's the only way that the majority of knowledge workers, which I am, which you are, which I imagine a lot of the people listening to this podcast are, if you're a knowledge worker, you have to learn the skill of influence. You have to learn how to communicate, and you have to learn how to express yourself in an emotionally resonant way. Otherwise, we end up getting lost. So that's really what I'm focused on at the moment, because I know that, you know, I've been training people to do this for 10 years and I'm so good at it. And I really know what it is that makes certain people able to sell something or build a relationship, or why someone would choose you over another service or give you some budget rather than somebody else. And these skills are kind of the opposite of how businesses run. And yeah, and I feel like we've got a few years. I've got a few years for my message to really land with people and as many people as possible. Otherwise, you know, competence is no longer enough.
Definitely.
So that's my big focus.
That's a really big one.
It's big.
What would you say are the main struggles, like concrete struggles that you see when you go into a specific company or a specific room? What are the main struggles? Because most of the time, I'm also thinking about the workshop you did with us. Like, we are adults and we work in so big companies, and actually we have a lot of training and we work at such high standards, but still I feel that your workshop was so necessary. I've learned so much. I didn't have any prejudice before, but I also didn't know what to expect, and I was like, oh, there's something new that I didn't know.
I mean, this might sound a bit abstract, but stay with me. So corporate environments, as we know them today, they were built in the 1950s, post-war, and it was built on military hierarchy. So the words we use in business now, campaign, strategy, tactics, promotion, demotion, chief executive officers, all of these words come from military strategy. And so we built corporate environments with a few principles in mind. Rational, serious, don't bring your emotions into work, focus only on the data and the information. And that was the fundamental premise of what it meant to be professional. And yes, workplaces have changed and continue to change, but every single business I walk into, every single one, and at this point there have been hundreds, every single business still, even now, prioritizes thinking about serious, rational information over human emotion, even though all of the science tells us that humans make emotional decisions, not rational ones. So we're all kind of living this untruth. And most of the people that I work with, they've presented information that's dry or boring. They've sat through a meeting where someone's clicking through some slides. They're not truly connecting with people. They're not truly building relationships with people. It makes us feel weird, like we can't be ourselves. We end up having like a work us and a life us that is super different. And there is so much joy and richness. But one of the things I say is I think we've internalized that workplaces are a battlefield because of its military history, but they're not. They can be a playground if we let them. And we have to unlearn basically everything that we learned about professionalism in corporate environments and start again. Because we got it, we didn't even get it wrong. It was just different. It was really different. And yeah, and so I think that's the reason for the struggles. And the struggles are imposter syndrome, overwhelm, burnout, lack of motivation, boredom, monotony, feeling like you don't have a purpose, just all of these things that most of us experience at work. You wake up and there's that subtle dread. You go into a meeting and you're already annoyed with the people that you're meeting with at the imaginary questions you've convinced yourself they're going to ask. There is just so much unnecessary stress and pain in workplaces because it's built on a fundamentally flawed premise. And we gotta start again.
It's a really big goal of yours.
And it doesn't take much, it just takes a few leaders. And you don't even have to, you don't need to document this. You don't need like a way of working or a company culture document. You just need a few people to model joy. And you need a few people to model their humanity and model authenticity and to teach people actually how to build trust and to sell with emotion rather than sell with information. Yeah. But I know for me, I have that ripple effect because, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I'm like a human lighthouse. I know when I walk into a room, I can light the whole space up. And so can you, and so can everyone. We all have this phenomenal skill to use your language from earlier, to have contagious energy. We just don't allow ourselves, and we've never learned how to do it.
Yeah. How can one build this confidence? Because I feel, like especially introverted people might struggle a little bit with this. What's your advice on that?
Yeah, introverted people are probably the best at this because when I talk about confidence, I'm not talking about speaking up. I'm not talking about being loud. I'm not talking about getting your point across. For me, true confidence is space. It's being able to walk into a room and not say anything. It's presence. It's actually being there. And I know we can all think of someone now who we worked with or have worked with, and they walk into a room and they don't say anything, but they're in charge, or they've got a great opinion, or that is what I can teach. So actually it tends to be easier for introverts because introverts tend to, as an extrovert speaking, I had to learn how to be more grounded and be more comfortable in silence. And that's where the power is. Like true power is in space and silence and presence. And so if anybody does want to learn to be more truly confident and more like grounded and have more gravitas and authority, the thing I always teach people is get comfortable with being in the moment. If someone's talking to you, actually listen to them. If you're in a meeting, put your phone away. Get comfortable with being there because we cannot own a room that we're not even in. Step number one is get good with experiencing what's happening now. not trying to like be in our head, being like, I'm going to say that thing next. That'll be a really smart thing to say, or that'll be really, and just try that skill of like just being there. And you will be amazed just doing that, how much that can shift people's perceptions of you. There's a difference between being quiet and being present. Big difference.
Big difference. Yeah. Yeah, I think it takes a lot of practice as well, I assume.
Years.
Yeah.
It's taken me, I'm good at this now, but I started learning it in 2017. This is not a quick thing to learn, but you can learn it and it is so transformational.
What are you still learning nowadays?
Oh, I'm learning all the time, everything constantly. Because I'm a speaker by trade, you know, my voice is my thing. I've always I've delivered 2,000 keynotes at this point in my career, and I've got 100% positive feedback, which statistically is very difficult. So I'm very proud of that. And I still always do speaker training all the time. I will never be finished. I will never be there. So I'll always, you know, there's a couple of practitioners that I really admire, and whenever they do a course, I'm like, oh, I'll do that, or I'll just go a little bit deeper. So I'm always learning presentation skills. And I think just in my life at the moment, I'm learning to slow down. I'm fast. I'm a fast person. I like to move quickly. I like things to move quickly. And so I'm trying to learn to be patient and to not rush things. And I think the big thing that I'm trying to learn always, something that all of us all the time are trying to learn, is to trust myself and to trust that whatever comes my way, and we are living in uncertain times, interesting times, hopeful, terrifying, scary, joyful, wonderful, what is happening times. And I think all of us in these times need to come back to a place of self-trust that whatever happens, we've got it. We've done a pandemic. We've got it. We can do all of the global crises. So yeah, trying to trust myself because it does feel interesting at the moment. And I imagine, you know, working in a tech company as well, like you're in it. And so trying to be like, I'm safe. I am safe. Not because of external environments, but because of me. I am my safety. I am my backup plan. You know, I've got me. And I think that's something I'm always trying to remind myself of.
Yeah. And how do you stay, let's say, so teachable?
I didn't used to be teachable, I don't think. I think I probably in my 20s was probably quite closed-minded, and I think I used to think that I had it all figured out. I wonder if that's just being in your 20s. Like, I've got it all figured out, I know everything. So I think for me, it's curiosity and just staying really curious about the world and staying really curious, first and foremost, about people. And I've never been good at maths or science at all. Like I've always struggled with it. But my partner, he studied physics at uni, like he loves it. And so he often tries to get me to watch these like maths YouTube videos. And it was the other day and he was like, let's watch this YouTube video about all of the mathematical equations behind all of the great like inventions. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm not going to yuck your yum. Let's do it. But I knew for me that I've learned about myself that the way I could access a real curiosity about that wasn't through the equation, but was through the ancient Greek person that experienced that. And I was like, okay, if I think about that human that went through that and how they felt during that time and what their life must have been like, then suddenly that subject of maths that for me has always felt very closed suddenly starts to open. So I am teachable because I know my entry point. I know that there are certain things that my brain just struggles with, abstract concepts, or what to me feels, I'm sure lots of people would be like, maths is not an abstract concept, but for me it really feels it. So I make sure I find my entry point, the thing that I'm interested in, and then you can view anything through that lens. You know, so I'll just always try and learn new things through a lens that I know I'm curious about. So I think everyone can find their specific thing that will get them staying up, reading a book until 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's such an amazing advice. Before closing, what's one thing you are excited about this year?
Oh, honestly, I feel like I'm a broken record if that expression translates. I'm excited about the fact we're living in this time. You know, I grew up watching Star Trek. I'm a peak nerd. I'm like a sci-fi nerd through and through. And I think if anybody else grew up watching sci-fi, we're excited. We're like just to watch this unfathomable change like unfold before my eyes. And, you know, I'm a heavy user of AI. I'm curious about technology. I always have been. And to see like how I would use it a year ago versus now, and to see that shift, and to because I lived the early internet and I was working in search at the early internet, I saw this huge shift in how people started searching, and I'm just seeing it again, and I'm just so there is a part of me that is of course scared about that, but I'm holding on to this hope. I'm holding on to this like human hope that, you know, maybe with this newfound technology, maybe all of the stickiest human challenges, climate change, disease, famine, maybe we've got a route to start curing some of these things. And humans are so good at doing the impossible. That's kind of our shtick. It's all we've ever done. All we have ever done is make the impossible possible. And so I'm trying to imagine this phenomenally, you know, glorious possible future. And I'm trying to hold on to that because it is possible. There's others that are less, they're also possible. And my brain will go there too. Of course, my brain will go there. And so I'm trying to stay excited, and I'm trying to stay hopeful, and I'm trying to stay positive. Because when I'm excited and hopeful and positive, that's when I do my best work. And that's when I can be most valuable to the people around me.
Thank you for chatting with me today. I learned a lot. So, Kirsty, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
This concludes my conversation with Kirsty Hulse. From redefining success to redefining confidence, one message stayed with me. In a world that's changing faster than ever, our greatest competitive advantage will always be our humanity. Thanks for joining, and see you next time.